Buzz. A dazzling beam of light shot out from the spirit-seeking compass, so intense that both Chen and Nine Nether were momentarily stunned, unable to react. After a long pause, they exchanged looks. "Let's go check it out," Chen said, licking his lips. Although he was startled by the movement of the spirit-seeking compass, he knew such an opportunity couldn't be easily overlooked. "Be careful," Nine Nether cautioned with a slight nod, her voice laced with concern. Chen nodded, then used the spirit-seeking compass to determine the location. His gaze shifted westward, and with a shared glance with Nine Nether, they shot off without hesitation. They swiftly passed by floating stone islands, scanning their surroundings as they searched for the source of the blinding light on the spirit-seeking compass. Thanks to the spirit-seeking compass, the search didn't take long. They soon arrived at a massive stone island, floating before them. Chen and Nine Nether exchanged a glance, and seeing that the location locked on by the spirit-seeking compass was indeed here, they knew this was the place. Boom! Without further hesitation, they launched their attacks. Vast spiritual energy converged into enormous palm seals, and in just a few breaths, the stone island was reduced to rubble by their forceful strikes. Whoosh! Whoosh! Fragments of stone shot out in all directions. Chen and Nine Nether locked their eyes on the debris, their gazes sharp, scanning for any abnormality. Nothing could escape their attention. But as time passed, the debris scattered, and to their astonishment, neither of them discovered anything unusual. "What's going on?" Nine Nether asked, bewildered. Chen frowned. They had carefully scanned the area earlier. There was no way they could have missed anything. Yet now, nothing seemed out of place. He lowered his gaze to the spirit-seeking compass and was taken aback. The blinding light on the compass had not dimmed, meaning the source was still there. "This stone island doesn't seem to be the target," Chen muttered. "Wasn't the location marked here?" Nine Nether asked in response. "It was." Chen's eyes flickered, and then he suddenly turned his gaze to the area where the stone island had been. His eyes narrowed, and his body slowly moved forward. There, he noticed that the area where the stone island had broken apart showed signs of spatial distortion. However, the distortion was not enough to form a spatial rift. But the fact that there was distorted space hidden inside the stone island was enough to raise suspicion. Chen focused intently on the distorted space and slowly raised the spirit-seeking compass. The dazzling beam of light erupted from it. Nine Nether also noticed something odd and quickly approached. Her delicate face was filled with shock as she stared at the distorted space. "It seems the anomaly is caused by this twisted space," Chen remarked, surprised. It turned out that the floating stone island had been a mere illusion, masking the true source, which lay within the distorted space. "Is this the treasure?" Nine Nether asked incredulously. Chen pondered for a moment, then narrowed his eyes slightly. After a brief silence, he suddenly spoke. "Can you tear open a spatial rift in this twisted space?" Nine Nether was startled. "You suspect the treasure is hidden within this distorted space. Someone has gone to great lengths to conceal it here, which must mean there's a purpose behind it. There should be some kind of hidden mechanism," Chen said with a nod. "Then I'll give it a try." Nine Nether nodded lightly, then clenched her jade hand. Vast spiritual energy gathered, crashing against the distorted space. The energy took the form of a giant hand, attempting to tear the distorted space open, creating a spatial rift. As Nine Nether's spiritual power slammed into the distorted space, she was momentarily taken aback. She realized just how unexpectedly sturdy the space was. For someone at her current level, a 6th grade supreme, tearing through space wasn't usually difficult. But now, even with all her strength, it felt like a monumental task. It seems something is indeed off here. Nine Nether gritted her teeth, unleashing all her spiritual power without restraint. The spatial rift, with Nine Nether's full effort, eventually reached a range of about 2 feet. However, when it reached this range, Nine Nether realized that this was the limit, and the rift seemed to be rebounding, attempting to gradually repair itself. "Hurry! I can't hold on much longer," Nine Nether urged. Buzz, seeing this, Chen did not dare waste time. He quickly stretched out his palm, which opened like a tiger's mouth, and forcefully yanked at the spatial rift. Immediately, a vortex of spiritual energy formed in his palm, and a terrifying suction surged forth. Whoosh! Whoosh! The powerful suction rushed into the rift, and soon, fragments of rock were shot out. However, as they neared Mu Chen's palm, they disintegrated into powder. Mu Chen did not know what lay beyond the rift, so out of caution, he dared not rush in. If he were to get lost in the spatial turbulence, even Mandala would have difficulty saving him. Therefore, he could only take this approach, using the suction to forcibly draw out the air from the twisted space. Poof! Poof! Countless rock fragments were continuously shot out, eventually being shredded into powder by the spiritual vortex, but no special objects appeared. As time passed, Nine Nether's jade hand began to tremble slightly, likely due to the strain. Mu Chen sighed inwardly when he saw this, but just as he was about to give up, a slightly different sound suddenly came from the rift. Whoosh! A black light shot out fiercely, crashing into the spiritual vortex. This time, however, the vortex failed to shred it. Instead, it was violently shattered by the black light. Mu Chen's reflexes were quick, and with a surge of spiritual energy into his palm, he grabbed the black light. At the same time, Nine Nether, exhausted, saw the rift rapidly shrinking and finally disappearing. The space there returned to its distorted state. Nine Nether wiped the sweat from her brow and glanced at Mu Chen, having caught a glimpse of the black light as it shot out. Mu Chen opened his palm, revealing a black object. It appeared to be a rough, triangular block of dark iron, with complex and ancient runes engraved on its surface. However, neither Mu Chen nor Nine Nether sensed any fluctuations of spiritual energy from it. Both of them stared at each other, clearly baffled. After all the effort, what they had produced was something so strange, and this object didn't seem like any kind of divine artifact. Mu Chen furrowed his brow and tried to infuse spiritual energy into it, but to his disappointment, no reaction occurred. The two tried various methods, but the triangular dark iron block remained completely inert. Eventually, Mu Chen and Nine Nether had no choice but to give up. We've been at it for so long, and all we have is this mysterious thing. Mu Chen and Nine Nether both found it hard to believe. Though their instincts told them that this item might not be simple, without being able to activate it, it was essentially useless. Forget it. Let's focus on finding other treasures. Mu Chen let out a bitter laugh, reluctantly giving up. He tossed the dark iron block into the Qian Kuan bracelet and began to use the spirit-seeking compass to search for other treasures. While continuing their search, Mu Chen suddenly glanced at a distant, imposing black pyramid suspended in the void. For a moment, he thought that the rough, triangular iron block seemed somewhat similar to the pyramid. However, that thought quickly vanished as Mu Chen self-mockingly laughed and pushed it aside, quickly catching up with Nine Nether. The two resumed their treasure hunt. In the following time, with the help of the spirit-seeking compass, they had some success, though most of the items they found weren't particularly remarkable. Overall, the first treasures they had discovered still felt the most exciting. Buzz! Suddenly, a humming sound came from the distance. Hearing this, Mu Chen and Nine Nether stopped, exchanged glances, and immediately headed in that direction. It was the summoning sound from Mandala. It seemed that the path ahead had been revealed. Above a stone island, the various kings gathered once again. Mandala looked at the smiles on their faces and knew that each of them had gained something, though she did not ask further, nor did she require them to submit their spoils. Prepare to head to the Earth's supreme relic. I've already sensed that other top-tier forces have also entered this space. Upon hearing Mandala's words, the group felt a chill in their hearts. The final battle of the Grand Hunting War would essentially take place at the Earth's supreme relic. To fight for its treasures, the major top forces would exert their full strength, and that struggle was bound to be extremely brutal. Let's go, Mandala said no more. With a wave of her hand, she transformed into a shadow of dark light and swiftly shot out. Her destination was none other than the distant dark pyramid. Seeing Mandala act with such decisive speed, Mu Chen, who had earlier discovered a strange object, had no time to speak of it. He could only shrug helplessly and quickly followed after her with Nine Nether and the others. As they caught up, Mu Chen couldn't help but notice the increasingly tense expressions of the kings. He exhaled deeply. The fiercest contest of the Grand Hunting War was about to begin. Whoosh! In the dim, twisted space, dozens of lights shot through the void like lightning. The leading figure among them had an aura so powerful it resembled a meteor screaming through the sky, reducing anything in its path to dust under its immense force. This group was naturally composed of powerful figures from the great Luo Heaven domain, and the leader was none other than Mandala. Mu Chun and the others were moving with incredible speed, like thunder, heading directly toward the dark pyramid in the distance. Only now did Mu Chun realize the vastness of this space. When he had observed from afar earlier, it seemed that the dark pyramid wasn't too far away, but now, as they sped toward it, the distance seemed almost endless. After flying for nearly half an hour, the dark pyramid remained just as distant. Mu Chun was secretly astonished. The space here is exceptionally distorted. Due to the projection from the twisted space, we thought the dark pyramid wasn't far, but in reality, it's probably tens of thousands of miles away. The heavenly vulture emperor, ahead of him, suddenly smiled faintly, as though sensing Mu Chen's surprise. Mu Chen nodded in awe. It truly felt like running toward a tower that could kill you from the sheer distance. However, at our current pace, we should be able to reach it in about half an hour. The space fluctuations near the Earth's supreme relic are more chaotic and violent. Don't touch anything carelessly, or you might get sucked into the spatial turbulence. The heavenly vulture emperor warned Mu Chun, Nine Nether, and the others. Understood, the kings replied immediately. The heavenly vulture emperor nodded and said no more. Their speed picked up again, cutting through the silent, distorted space like a comet. After another half hour, Mu Chun finally noticed that Mandala, who was leading the group, was gradually slowing down. He was slightly shocked when he felt an endless shadow descending from above, enveloping their figures. The group looked up in unison, and a collective gasp filled the air. Ahead, in the vast expanse of space, the dark pyramid loomed, its peak seemingly never-ending. A terrifying pressure radiated from it, and even Mu Chun and the others felt their scalps tingling. Although they had known about the grandeur of the dark pyramid, only now, as they drew near, did Mu Chun and the others feel the full extent of its shock. Its vast and boundless form was enough to instill awe. In the void surrounding the dark pyramid, the very fabric of space seemed unable to withstand the pressure, becoming warped. Irregular spatial rifts appeared and vanished, one after another. "This is our goal," Mandala said as she hovered in midair. She gazed up at the colossal dark pyramid. Though she was the smallest in stature among the group, everyone knew the terrifying power hidden within her petite frame. A being of Earth's supreme rank was one of the top existences in the entire Great Thousand Worlds. Domain Lord, are we ready to move? Behind Mandala, the previously sleeping king also opened his eyes. His usually blurry eyes suddenly emitted sharp, piercing light, and a faint aura of oppression spread out. That pressure was far stronger than even the heavenly vulture emperor or the spirit pupil emperor. Mandala nodded and said, "Other top forces should have arrived at different locations by now. We must act quickly to avoid being overtaken." With her words, Mandala's figure slowly drifted toward the dark pyramid. Around the pyramid, violent spatial rifts appeared one after another, attempting to block her approach. However, with a simple wave of her hand, she erased the spatial rifts that would have given Mu Chun and the others a hard time. Her figure finally stopped in front of the dark pyramid. Here, she could clearly see the ancient runes spreading across the pyramid's surface, emitting a faint but extremely powerful wave of energy. The strength of that spiritual energy was so overwhelming that even Mandala's golden eyes squinted slightly. The seal here was even stronger than the one she encountered before. Fortunately, she had prepared for this. Mandala raised her hand, and the Qian Kuan bracelet appeared once more. Then, a torrent formed by the fallen source pills surged forth, this time even more immense than before. The torrent swirled around Mandala, and the quantity seemed to exceed 200,000. Seeing such a massive amount of fallen source pills, Mu Chun and the others couldn't help but feel some heartache. After all, if this were converted into supreme spiritual liquid, it would be a terrifying amount of over 2 million. 2 million supreme spiritual liquid. It would certainly tempt even strong individuals like the heavenly vulture emperor. Mandala gently rubbed her fingers, and those 200,000 fallen source pills were compressed into thick, viscous fallen spiritual liquid before their eyes. Swoosh, swoosh. Mandala flicked her finger, and each drop of the thick, mountain-like liquid shot out like arrows, continuously striking the surface of the Dark Pyramid. Mandala knew that the seal on the Dark Pyramid was extremely powerful. Relying solely on these 200,000 fallen source pills would not break the seal entirely, so she had to focus on breaking through a small portion. Under her precise control, the liquid shot out in concentrated streams, targeting only a small area on the surface of the pyramid. Sizzle! Sizzle! The fallen spiritual liquid landed on the pyramid's surface, and as expected, it immediately caused a reaction. The ancient runes on the pyramid began to melt away. As the runes dissolved, the Dark Pyramid seemed to be slowly melting as well, and a crack began to form. The crack quickly expanded under the erosion of the spiritual liquid. In just a few minutes, the fallen spiritual liquid formed by 200,000 fallen source pills had been completely consumed, and the crack had expanded to about a foot wide, large enough for a person to pass through. "Prepare to enter. Be careful," Mandala said, looking at the crack that was about a foot wide, before turning to Chen and the others. "Yes." Chen and the others responded solemnly. The relics they had encountered before now seemed insignificant compared to the terrifying Earth Supreme relic in front of them. Of course, the dangers inside could obliterate them in an instant. Mandala nodded, saying no more. She turned and stepped toward the crack, followed by the three sovereigns and Chen. As they stepped through the crack, an even deeper darkness enveloped them. Chen and the others felt a slight chill run down their spines. The Dark Pyramid now seemed like an ancient ferocious beast, its bloodthirsty mouth wide open, waiting for their entry. As the darkness closed in, Chen took a deep breath, sensing the faint scent of blood. Within this Earth Supreme relic, a brutal battle was almost certain. At this moment, Chen couldn't help but feel a slight stir in the strange black triangular object he had obtained earlier. It seemed to be pulsing ever so slightly. Beyond the crack was an abyss of darkness so deep it seemed endless, sending a wave of fear through them. It seems that within this Dark Pyramid, there is also inner space, extremely mysterious. Although the Earth Supreme relic is profound, Chen and the others were not worried about losing their way. After all, in front of them, there was a genuine Earth Supreme leading the way. That figure, though petite, seemed to possess an extraordinarily powerful force that protected them all within its embrace, giving them a sense of security. While Chen was lost in thought, the mandala in front suddenly stopped. The group's gaze followed, and they noticed that in front of mandala, a light gate had appeared, though they didn't know when. The gate twisted and emitted strong spatial fluctuations, leaving them unsure of where it led. Mandala gently touched the light gate with her small hand, then furrowed her brows and said, "Once we pass through this gate, we will truly enter the Earth Supreme Relic. At that point, we will experience the danger of the Earth Supreme Relic for ourselves. Are you all ready?" Upon hearing this, Chen and the others felt a chill in their hearts, their faces immediately turning serious as they nodded solemnly. Mandala saw this and gently nodded. She hesitated no longer and, raising her foot, was the first to step into the light gate. In a flash of light, she vanished without a trace. Behind her, the three sovereigns immediately followed, and soon, the various kings exchanged a glance before rushing into the gate. Nine Nether and Chen fell to the rear, both of them wearing serious expressions. They looked at each other, then simultaneously charged forward. As the light flickered, they too disappeared into the gate. With their entry, the light gate quickly dimmed and then disappeared completely. The space once again turned dark. However, at the exact moment Chen and the others entered the Earth Supreme Relic, in another direction, spatial fluctuations rippled, and figures flickered in and out like ghosts. Their destination was the same, toward the Earth Supreme Relic. Faintly, it seemed that a tragic aura spread through the relic space. The once silent relic, having been dormant for over 10,000 years, was now finally being unlocked. On the enormous battle stage, the Xun'er king stood casually, his broad figure like a mountain, heavy and magnificent. Vast spiritual energy surged around him, and even Chen and the others, standing outside the stage, could clearly sense the overwhelming pressure. In front of the Xun'er king stood a figure like an iron tower, exuding the aura of a vicious beast. Scars crisscrossed its exposed body, adding to its menacing presence. This figure, though humanoid, had the head of a ferocious flood dragon, its sharp teeth gleaming with a deadly glint, razor-sharp to the extreme. Its slightly reddish eyes were fixed on the Xun'er king, filled with endless murderous intent, its overwhelming killing aura making even the bravest shiver. Both figures exuded a terrifying presence. The confrontation between them was undoubtedly eye-catching. Is that the devouring demon dragon, one of the 10 fierce beasts of the ancient heavenly palace? Chen and the others looked serious. The murderous aura emanating from the devouring demon dragon put even them under pressure. It seemed that these so-called 10 fierce beasts, though long fallen, had preserved most of their former strength through unique methods. This devouring demon dragon is one of the strongest among the 10 fierce beasts of the heavenly palace. It was said to be an 8th grade supreme in its prime. Although it has fallen now, its strength is likely at the peak of 6th grade supreme, but thanks to its divine beast constitution, it can still contend with a 7th grade supreme, Mandala said slowly as she watched the two figures facing off on the battle stage. Chen and the others were silently amazed. The ancient heavenly palace truly lived up to its reputation as the ruler of the Tianluo continent in ancient times. Just under the 4th Hall Master's command, there were so many powerful individuals. The 10 fierce beasts were clearly on a higher level compared to the various kings of their Daluo domain. They were comparable to the heavenly vulture emperor and others. Boom! As Chen and the others marveled at the power of the ancient heavenly palace, the Xun'er king's eyes suddenly flashed with intense brilliance. Powerful spiritual energy surged to the sky. In the next moment, he took a step forward. The stone slabs under his feet cracked, and his figure shot forward like a streak of lightning, carrying overwhelming momentum as he charged directly at the devouring demon dragon. With his 7th grade supreme strength, he clearly wasn't afraid of the devouring demon dragon. The devouring demon dragon let out a fierce roar as it saw the Xun'er king charge at it. Its eyes were filled with a murderous gleam, and its scaled palms suddenly clenched tightly. The blood-red spiritual energy surged wildly, and then it threw a punch. Under that punch, the blood-red spiritual energy transformed into a ferocious demon dragon, tearing through the air and distorting space itself. Boom! The two figures collided with brutal force. Their fists met without any attempt at dodging, causing a terrifying shockwave to spread out. Cracks appeared beneath their feet, and both were blasted backward. Just as the two figures stabilized, they shot forward once again, their bodies becoming like two violent spiritual energy orbs, intertwining fiercely in the center of the battle stage. Boom! Boom! Their attacks were fierce and domineering, each punch landing with bone-crushing force. In just a few dozen breaths, they had exchanged over 100 blows. Each collision of their fists caused the space around them to twist uncontrollably. Outside the battle stage, Chen and the others watched the fierce confrontation with tense expressions. It was clear that the Xun'er king had already activated all of his spiritual energy. The pressure emanating from his every move could shatter mountains, and combined with his ruthless offensive, he now seemed more like an ancient fierce beast than the devouring demon dragon itself. Despite being at a disadvantage in most of the exchanges, the devouring demon dragon did not retreat. Its brute force was enough to intimidate any opponent with weak mental fortitude. From the start, the battle on the stage had been fierce and intense. Mandala and the three sovereigns watched the confrontation calmly. Their perception far surpassed that of Chen and his group, so they could clearly see that the Xun'er king was gradually gaining the upper hand in the situation. If things continued like this, victory for the Xun'er king would not be difficult. Boom! As if to confirm what Mandala and the others had been thinking, the two figures clashed once again like ferocious beasts. However, this time, the Xun'er king's palms suddenly turned blood-red, an overwhelming killing intent radiating from it. With a single swipe, his palm pierced through space, striking the devouring demon dragon's chest with lightning speed. Xun'er blood palm seal. Boom! A burst of blood light erupted from the devouring demon dragon's chest, sending it flying backward. The armor on its chest shattered, and the chest caved in, a painful roar echoing through the air. The devouring demon dragon's body flew over 100 meters across the battle stage, but it slammed into the ground and shot back into the sky. Its crimson eyes were filled with violent rage. It paid no attention to the collapsed chest, charging forward like a wild bull. Its blood-red spiritual energy enveloped its body, and as the spiritual energy surged, it transformed into a blood-red demon dragon on the surface of its body. Boom, boom. The entire battle stage trembled from the impact of the devouring demon dragon's charge. Such a collision would shatter mountains in its path. The Xun'er king watched the devouring demon dragon, now carrying terrifying force, and his eyes narrowed. He took a deep breath, then suddenly brought his hands together. Buzz. Powerful spiritual energy erupted from his body like a storm. In the next instant, an enormous shadow appeared outside the Xun'er king's body. The shadow had the shape of an ox's head, and a terrifying killing intent emanated from it, resembling a god of slaughter. That's the heavenly Xun'er Dharma body, Chen said, his eyes sharpening. This was the Xun'er king's supreme Dharmakaya, ranked 69th among the 99 supreme Dharma bodies. Mu. The Xun'er giant shadow roared to the sky, then swung its massive fist, sending a surge of blood light. The space was violently shattered as it collided with the devouring demon dragon. Buzz. The visible shockwave erupted, slamming into the light barrier surrounding the battle stage, causing it to tremble violently. Whoosh. From the epicenter of the shockwave, the Xun'er king was sent flying backward. His feet left deep marks on the ground, while the devouring demon dragon was blasted backward, its body crashing into the light barrier. The barrier trembled before exploding into countless glowing points. Outside the platform, the king sighed in relief upon seeing the Xun'er king victorious. The fluctuations of spiritual energy around the Xun'er king gradually subsided. He lifted his head, only to see countless specks of light, remnants of the devouring demon dragon, suddenly converge towards him, before surging into his body in a torrent. This sudden development took the Xun'er king by surprise. Just as he was about to resist, Mandala's voice echoed, "This is the spiritual essence left behind by the devouring demon dragon. Absorb it, it will greatly benefit you." Upon hearing Mandala's voice, the Xun'er king's initial shock turned to joy. He quickly began to circulate his cultivation technique, absorbing all the massive spiritual essence that surged into his body. The absorption lasted for nearly half an hour. Only after that did the Xun'er king slowly open his eyes. His gaze gleamed with sharpness, and the spiritual energy fluctuations around him grew more powerful. Clearly, after absorbing the spiritual essence left by the devouring demon dragon, the Xun'er king's internal energy had significantly improved. Seeing this outside the battle platform, the other kings couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy. After all, at the Xun'er king's level, further improvements in strength would typically require long years of grueling cultivation. Yet, the spiritual essence of the devouring demon dragon had saved him a tremendous amount of time. Once the spiritual essence was fully absorbed, and before the Xun'er king could speak, a sudden force of repulsion erupted from the battle platform, launching him off the stage. At the same time, the bronze giant door, which had been tightly shut, began to make hissing sounds. The crowd looked up to see that one of the 10 fierce beast faces etched onto the bronze door was slowly melting away. This face was none other than the devouring demon dragon, which the Xun'er king had just defeated. It seems that every time a fierce beast is defeated, one layer of the seal is dissolved, the heavenly vulture emperor observed. However, if these beasts possess the same strength as the devouring demon dragon. The spirit pupil emperor paused, pondering. Our chances of victory aren't that high. Among the kings of the great Luo heaven domain, only the Xun'er king was at the 7th grade supreme level. The others had yet to reach that rank, and if they were to engage, their chances of winning were slim. The devouring demon dragon is one of the top beasts among the 10 fierce beasts, so its combat power is naturally formidable. But don't worry, not every beast here is as difficult to handle as the devouring demon dragon. Mandala gently shook her head. Moreover, we don't need to win every match. If we dissolve 4 of the 10 seals on the bronze door, I can forcibly intervene and break it open. She cast a glance at the kings with her golden eyes. So, we only need to win 4 battles to break the bronze door. Upon hearing this, the kings felt a bit more at ease. Winning 4 out of 10 battles seemed like a feasible goal. Who will fight in the second match? Mandala asked. The kings exchanged glances, and then the mountain-splitting king stepped forward, his voice deep. I'll take the second match. The mountain-splitting king was second only to the Xun'er king in strength, with a peak 6th grade supreme cultivation, making him more than qualified to take the first step. Seeing no objections, the mountain-splitting king moved and leapt onto the massive battle platform. Boom! As the mountain-splitting king entered the arena, the crowd immediately saw that atop another giant stone pillar, another bronze statue began to tremble. Amidst the surging malevolent aura, a massive figure stepped onto the platform, its presence shaking the very earth. The malevolent energy swirling around it made a dragon's roar echo as dragon might filled the air. When Chen and the others saw the giant figure, their expressions changed slightly. They immediately sensed that this figure's aura was even stronger than the devouring demon dragons. The blood demon dragon, the leader of the 10 fierce beasts. Mandala's brow furrowed, her voice a low murmur. Chen and the others' hearts sank. Clearly, no one had expected the mountain-splitting king's bad luck. As soon as he entered, he triggered the activation of the most formidable beast among the 10 fierce beasts. On the massive battle platform, the imposing figure's malevolent aura gradually contracted as its face became clearer. It was a humanoid body with a beast's head, and it was said to have once possessed the terrifying strength of a 9th grade supreme. Even though it had fallen, its preserved strength was still greater than the devouring demon dragons. Its physique was even more imposing than the devouring demon dragons. On the battle stage, the expression of the mountain-splitting king also darkened due to the appearance of the blood demon dragon. From the latter's presence, he sensed a strong aura of danger. He was well aware of his own strength. If he encountered a slightly weaker of the 10 fierce beasts, he could still fight back. But who could have known that he would face the most powerful of the 10 fierce beasts, the blood demon dragon, right from the start? This confrontation held little suspense. The mountain-splitting king secretly cursed in his heart. However, there was no turning back now. No matter what, he had to steel himself and give it a try. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed his emotions, and his gaze gradually became sharp. Although he knew that his opponent was extremely formidable, he was, after all, a long-established powerhouse in the great Luo Heaven domain, and it was impossible for him to easily lose his fighting will. Suddenly, an overwhelming surge of spiritual energy erupted from within the mountain-splitting king. This energy was only a step away from reaching the 7th grade supreme level. But even with this step, the difference between him and the Xun'er king was still considerable. Boom! The mountain-splitting king clenched his fist. A dark red giant axe appeared in his hand. The axe emitted an extremely sharp aura of spiritual energy, clearly indicating it was a powerful divine artifact. Faced with such a strong enemy, the mountain-splitting king could not act recklessly like the Xun'er king, charging directly with an iron fist. Swish! The mountain-splitting king's figure blurred as he shot forward like a streak of light. In a flash, he appeared above the blood demon dragon. His eyes gleamed with a chilling intent, and the giant axe swung down mercilessly. Heaven-splitting divine art, heaven-splitting slash. With a roar, filled with murderous intent, a massive axe beam hundreds of feet long descended in a domineering fashion. As the light passed, the space itself seemed to tear open. The mountain-splitting king clearly understood the strength of the blood demon dragon. So from the very beginning, he did not hold back at all. He unleashed his strongest killing move without any hesitation. Boom! The axe beam was so fast that it seemed as though the light flashed in an instant. The next moment, it descended with the power to shatter the world, and the blood demon dragon was completely engulfed. The eyes of the onlookers narrowed slightly. As the dust settled, their gazes fixed on the place where the blood demon dragon had stood, and their eyes widened in shock. The mountain-splitting king's face darkened further. Despite being struck head-on by the mountain-splitting king's powerful blow, the blood demon dragon remained standing. Its arms were crossed protectively over its head, clearly having withstood the attack with its sheer strength. However, even after enduring the full force of the blow, the only result was a deep wound on its arms, and blood flowed from it. Yet the wound was healing at an astonishing speed. The Blood Demon Dragon's immense physical strength and powerful regenerative abilities were truly astonishing. Outside the battle stage, the kings all shook their heads with bitter smiles. The Blood Demon Dragon was indeed too troublesome. If it were the Xun'er king, they might still have had a chance, but against the Mountain-Splitting King, it was clear that he was still a step behind. Damn it! The Mountain-Splitting King's face darkened, his teeth grinding in frustration. His eyes flashed with a fierce light as he tightly gripped the giant axe, his spiritual energy beginning to surge violently within him. Today he would give it his all to see just how strong this damn, fierce beast truly was. Mountain-Splitting King, stop. We give up this round. A voice from outside the battle stage, belonging to Mandala, interrupted just as the Mountain-Splitting King was preparing to make his final push. Hearing Mandala's voice, the Mountain-Splitting King froze for a moment, and then, with a reluctant bite of his teeth, he loosened his grip on the giant axe. His expression darkened as he turned and leaped off the stage. He knew that even if he gave it everything he had, he still had little chance of winning against the Blood Demon Dragon. If he insisted on continuing, he would most likely end up severely wounded. As the Mountain-Splitting King left the stage, the Blood Demon Dragon's body erupted with light, and it soared into the air again, returning to the top of a stone pillar, where it transformed into a bronze statue. The Mountain-Splitting King, slightly ashamed, looked at Mandala and said, "I am incompetent." Mandala waved her hand, stopping him from speaking. "It's not your fault. If the Earth's Supreme Treasure Vault could be breached so easily, then that would be underestimating the Fourth Hall Master. Hee, this is just the first round. We only need to win 3 more, and the Domain Lord can forcibly break the formation. Although we lost 1 match, it's not necessarily a bad thing. At least the Blood Demon Dragon won't be activated again." Mandala nodded and said, "From the rules here, it seems that both the challengers and the challenged will only appear once, regardless of victory or defeat. Therefore, the Blood Demon Dragon shouldn't appear again after this." Upon hearing this, the kings also sighed in relief. After all, with the Xun'er king unable to intervene, none of them could match the Blood Demon Dragon's strength. Chen also sighed inwardly. If he still had an army at his disposal, he could have used the power of battle intent to confront the Blood Demon Dragon. Unfortunately, in this place, the only strength he could rely on was his own true power. Next, there are 8 more challenges. Who will go first? Mandala's golden eyes once again looked toward the other kings, speaking slowly. The remaining kings exchanged glances. After a brief moment, the Blood Eagle King stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "I'll take the 3rd match." Although they all knew that these 8 challenges would not be easy, as high-ranking figures of the Great Luo Heaven Domain, they clearly could not back down at this moment. No matter what, they had to step up. Otherwise, if they failed to enter the depths of the Earth's Supreme Relic, and the Fourth Hall Master's spiritual divine liquid fell into the hands of other top-tier forces, it would be a devastating blow to the Great Luo Heaven Domain. Whoosh! The Blood Eagle King stomped his foot, and his figure shot toward the enormous battle platform under everyone's gaze. Boom! As the Blood Eagle King took the stage, the ancient hall trembled. A bronze statue quickly revived, landing on the battle platform with a deadly aura. That's the Heavenly Dragon Bear, one of the 10 fierce beasts of the ancient Heavenly Palace, a 6th grade supreme with the strength to move mountains, Mandala said slowly, looking at the massive figure in front of the Blood Eagle King. "I wonder how the Blood Eagle King's chances are." The Heavenly Vulture Emperor furrowed his brow and said. Mandala lowered her gaze slightly and sighed inwardly. Though the Heavenly Dragon Bear was only a 6th grade supreme, the Blood Eagle King was also only in the early stages of 6th grade supreme. When the two clashed, she didn't have much faith in the Blood Eagle King. And indeed, just as Mandala expected, the battle on the platform began intensely, with both sides exchanging attacks and defenses. But as the fight wore on, the Blood Eagle King gradually showed signs of wear. In the final exchange, the Blood Eagle King exposed a fatal flaw and was blasted off the platform by the Heavenly Dragon Bear's Dragon Palm. The third match, Blood Eagle King lost. After the Blood Eagle King, the kings of the great Luo Heaven Domain began to feel a surge of anger in their hearts. It seemed that these consecutive defeats had stirred their pride. But anger aside, they couldn't deny that the 10 fierce beasts of the ancient heavenly palace were indeed stronger than the kings of the great Luo Heaven Domain. This was clear from the next few battles. The fourth match, the Spirit Sword King stepped up and faced one of the 10 fierce beasts, the three-headed demon serpent. He lost again. The fifth match, the Ice River King faced one of the 10 fierce beasts, the Netherworld Spirit Hound. Another defeat. For consecutive losses for the great Luo Heaven Domain, with only the first match where the Xun'er King managed to win a temporary victory. Outside the ancient hall, the faces of the great Luo Heaven Domain kings were grim. Their faces were as red as fire after such a string of defeats. Mandala looked at this scene and sighed lightly. However, she didn't blame them. Instead, she said, "Don't worry too much. If we end up losing all the matches, I will break the formation myself." When the others heard that Mandala could forcibly break the formation, they didn't look pleased. They all knew that even if Mandala could break the formation, it would consume a great deal of her energy. If they encountered another top-tier force afterward, the other forces might take advantage of her weakness, and that would lead to complete destruction for them. Therefore, if possible, they had to do everything they could to help Mandala maintain her best condition until they could obtain the spiritual divine liquid. Chen focused on the bronze statue atop the massive stone pillar, his palm slowly tightening. But just as he was about to step onto the stage, Nine Nether took a step forward. "Domain Lord, let me take the sixth match." Nine Nether's beautiful eyes looked at Mandala. Mandala glanced at Nine Nether, paused for a moment, then nodded gently. "If you're defeated, retreat." The Nine Nether Sparrow gently nodded, her gaze meeting Chen's beside her. Before he could say anything, her delicate figure flickered, and she appeared directly on the massive battle platform.